Please welcome Executive Chair of Ford Motor Company, Bill Ford. A member of the Board of Directors for Ford Motor Company, Alexandra Ford English. And to moderate the conversation, please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Sammac Communications, Christy McDonald.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you as everyone kind of comes in and shifts and sit down. It's good to see you, Bill. And Alexandra, welcome to Mackinac, the Mackinac Policy Conference.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
And I want to say congratulations on your seat on the board. You are the first female Ford family member since 1903 to be on the board. So
That's true.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think I want to start off with the visual of you sitting here, the both of you together, because we all know family dynamics. We all know parent-child dynamics. How does it feel to be sitting in these positions together? Let me start with you, Bill.
Well, I wish I had different children. It's been great, and I actually love it. And you know, for both Alexandra and her two brothers, who both work at Ford, it's really been a way of life. It's not a job. It's not something that, but they had to come to it on their own. They couldn't. This is not something I could ever say to any of them, I would like you to do this. It wouldn't work. They had to feel it. They had to want it. And thankfully for me, that all three of them came to that conclusion, but they all had to start somewhere else first. And they all have. And I absolutely love having all three of them there, but as every parent in this room will understand, you better be ready for what you hear because, I stopped being the head of Ford Motor Company when I walk in the door at home.
Yeah.
And, and frankly, though, they will tell me things that nobody else will, and I value that.
Yeah, I love the idea of the generational culture and tension. Alexandra, you worked with the company for several years on innovation, EVs, the autonomous program as well, and now sitting on the board. Tell us a little bit about where your focus is lying.
Yeah, I mean, we are always focused on the future. A lot of people think about family involvement as being protectors of the past, and that is absolutely not how we view our role. A lot of that stems from Dad and how he thinks about the company, but we just have such a rich opportunity set ahead of us. I mean, the industry is changing so rapidly, and so I'm really focused on everything that's going to come for our company. So every time I'm thinking about decisions, I'm thinking, are we going to be happy about this decision in 5 years? Mm-hmm. What about 10 years, 20? And that really long-term focus allows us to have, first of all, a lot of stability, but also a great growth mindset. So I spend a lot of my time also thinking, of course, on the matters of the day, but very long-term focused as well.
When you talk about having your children, so you also have Will and Nick who are at the company, is there arm twisting? Is there unfair expectations of then having your children at the company? And what does that feel like?
Well, I'm sure there are unfair expectations, but I put into place something a few years ago that I won't violate, which is to say to not just my children, but any of my nieces, nephews, to say this: if you want to work at Ford, you must do several things. Number one, you must have a graduate degree from a top university in a relevant topic. So think, business, law, engineering. Mm-hmm. Then you must go work somewhere else for a minimum of 5 years. And after you've done all of that, if you still want to come to Ford, then you got to come see me, and it's still not a guarantee. Because it's for their own protection, frankly, that they know that they stack up against all their peer group, but it's also for the company's protection. We cannot be a family employment agency. And so we really, I want to make sure that the young people in our family that are coming into the company are incredibly well qualified, very motivated, and understand all the things that come with it. And part of having them work somewhere else for 5 years, it's really severalfold. One is they will succeed or fail on their own, not because of who they are. But secondly, they'll grow up somewhere else. They don't have 1 foot still in the university campus. And I think that's important too. So I think that, but nonetheless, there are expectations, and many of my relatives have chosen not to come to Ford.
Mm-hmm. And you have one daughter.
So I have 2 daughters. Obviously,
psychology,
Alexandra, and I have a daughter who's a PhD psychologist, and she'll never have to leave the family for
No,
all of that.
Her work is cut out for her at the family dinner table.
Exactly. No, she's got a building client base forever. But
Well, let me ask you, Alexandra, what was that conversation like when he said you have to go have an advanced degree, you have to go out for 5 years, and then come see me and talk to me? What was that conversation?
Well, it's interesting because he did just that, and it happened more naturally. I actually went to go work in retail first, and I'm so glad I did. First of all,
you were at Tory Burch in
Gap
the Gap
Inc. in San Francisco, and then
Okay.
Tory Burch in New York, and I loved it. I loved it. And not only that, I'm glad that I had a normal corporate company experience. I had failures, I had promotions, and then when I did feel the tug to come work for Ford, I did that first through an MBA internship, and I'll be candid, I didn't have the best experience, and I thought that meant that a career at Ford was not going to be for me.
Yeah.
And I was nervous, but I went to tell him, and his reaction was fantastic. I'm thrilled. Now you can go figure out what makes you happy and what you do want to go do. And I stood there and I was frustrated because it would have been so much easier if he had told me you have to work here. Like that would have been such an easier decision for me to make, but then it was on me to figure out a good fit for myself within the company. And I found it, and I found many more since then. And I'm so happy the decision was mine because, look, as fun as the industry is, it's a tough industry. And if I didn't really want to be here and I hadn't had that challenge and know I really want to be here, it wouldn't be as much fun as it is.
So what is the family dinner table like, the conversation? Is it ever suspended from Ford? I mean, I got to know.
yeah, I mean, well, look, in many ways it's probably no different than yours or anybody else's. I mean, it's you're catching up. It's kind of, but there's always been an element of Ford for all of us from the day that they were born. And it's inescapable. And it's who we are. It's what we grew up with. It's I'm only the fourth family member in 100 and what is it now 22 years to be head of the company. And and we do talk a lot about it, and we argue a lot as families do. And I love that because I don't get a lot of honest feedback in my job, frankly. And there's no shortage of that at our house.
So what do you think the value thread is that has gone through the generations? Is there a certain mantra? Is there a certain phrase? Is there anything that what would you say it would be, Alexandra?
Yeah, we were never sat down and taught the company values. It was just part and parcel with how we were raised, and it would be very difficult to separate the corporate values from our family values. And we mostly learned them from watching Dad, at least I did. And I'll give you an example. He would always go out of his way to give us, tell us about his day and his work and the experience he had. And whenever he spoke about employees, it was always with deep respect, and that leaves an impression. So it's really, for us, about, of course, amazing products and amazing vehicles, but more it's about the people, leaving the world a better place, taking care of our customers, our employees, the communities we live in, helping when we can, because we're usually in a position to do so. At no point was there a transfer of those values. I don't remember anything other than those values, and so it's very easy to uphold them. In some, you could argue it's difficult and you get challenged quite a bit, but it's all we know. And so it's really nice. It's a great guidepost because so many things in our world are changing by the day, an hour, and the minute. And to know where you won't back away from is actually, I find great comfort in that. Otherwise, you might not know where your north is.
What's the generational value thread that you think that you've picked up on, Bill?
Well, I mean, Alexandra really touched on it. It is, I've always believed that if companies aren't making people's lives better, then they shouldn't exist. And so for us, it's always, and she really touched on it, it's about the communities in which we operate, whether it's Detroit and what we can do for Detroit or Michigan or anywhere else we operate. To me, that's what a great company does. It has values and then it lives by them. It's so easy to talk about them. You just got to live them. And it's about giving back every single day. And I've found that actually it comes back to you many more times than you give. And I can think of so many examples of that. But maybe the most stark example was during the financial crisis when we were right on the edge of not making it. And I got flooded with notes and letters and emails from employees at all levels from the plant floor up saying, hey, Bill, don't give up. We can do this. This is a great company. Well, normally those are top down. But they were all coming back to me saying, we love this company, and we will not let this company fail. And guess what? They didn't. As others went bankrupt around us, our employees simply wouldn't let us fail. And it's because the company has to be more than a paycheck. And if all it is a paycheck, forget it. It's not worth it. This is too hard a business. It's too hard to find ways to get excited. Unless you truly believe and live the values that I believe and that Alexandra believes and that so many of our employees virtually, in fact, I'd say pretty much all our employees, because if they don't believe it, they're not going to fit in and they shouldn't last.
I mean, is it difficult, though, when you have this global corporation where everyone is coming at you and you're also in an industry that is constantly changing? And again, we are going to be talking about the political nature of where we are in turbulent times. But focusing on these values, community-oriented, do you find it difficult to continue to keep the model that you have?
No, actually, I think it's a strength. As Alexandra said, it really gives us a grounding and a true north in terms of who we are and what we're going to do come hell or high water. So, no, I actually think it's in a world, as she said, that's ever-changing and ever-turbulent, to know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and where you should be spending your time and your effort and your money, I think that actually makes life a lot easier.
So, Alexandra, with that premise, though, there has got to be a little bit of generational clashing or rubbing in terms of maybe we should do it this way if we have our true north, but there are different ways that we can do things, Dad.
Well, I tell him about 100 times a day all the different ways we could be doing things, but he's receptive to them. So what I think is really interesting about this conversation, and we talk about it a lot, is there are values which are unchanging, and then there's culture which needs to change all the time, strategies which need to change all the time, products, of course, need to change all the time. And so when we think about it as a family, there are really no sacred cows within the company aside from our values. And so we're receptive to changing just about anything. But there are things, of course, we believe deeply in. We believe our home is in Michigan. We believe in American manufacturing. We believe in making people's lives better. There are things we believe in. But everything else, one of the benefits of family involvement is we have such a long-term focus. You have to adapt. You have to evolve to stay relevant and competitive. And so it's really a mandate that we have. And so when I call him up, or we talked amongst our cousins and brothers and everyone who works at the company, and we come up with all these different ways to do things, there's a real receptiveness to it because we have to.
So there isn't like a separate group chat between you, Nick, and Will saying,
There
"Okay,
is."
Can you put
Yeah,
We gotta
it's
get him
usually
to
at
do
my
this.
expense. In fact, it always is.
We have one with him and one without him.
Is there anything that you can give us, like a specific example of some of the things that you've wanted to see change? You know, I love this. I've been looking forward to this conversation all day.
No.
Well, I will give you an example. So when I first came to work at the company, and you know, it's no surprise, but I was underwhelmed by the facilities in which I was working. And we had this funny, text chain going where I would just casually send him, photos and videos of all the things that I found that weren't quite up to snuff in our building. And, some of them were funny, some of them needed to change. And, I felt if I'm seeing this and I have all the pride in the world for this company, then a different employee might not be as forgiving. Like, they shouldn't work here either. And so we have fantastic new buildings, and we opened Michigan Central Station, and we have, really invested in our facilities for our customers and in our plants as well. And those are things that we really care about. So whether it's things like that, whether it's, corporate maternity leave policies or products that we think are interesting, I think we talk probably 10 times a day, but for about 30 seconds each.
Do you really? I want to get on that text thread so badly, I can't even tell you. All right, let's talk a little bit about leading during turbulent times right now. I think one of the big questions people have in this room is, we know what's happening with the change in the White House and President Trump. When's the last time you've spoken to President Trump? And what is the line like back and forth between the White House and Ford?
Well, so we speak to the White House almost on a daily basis, and I think, look, the hard part for a lot of people in Washington, this has always been the case, regardless of party, is to understand that our lead times as an industrial manufacturer are longer than political lead times, and we can adapt to almost anything except uncertainty. And unfortunately, where we are right now is there's nothing but uncertainty. You look at all the tariffs. In fact, at one point, we had 4 layers of tariffs on us. We had the fentanyl tariffs, we had the reciprocal tariffs, we had the auto tariffs, we had the steel and aluminum tariffs. And all of that unintentional, and yet there we were. So, but I think that proves the point that, unintentionally, there's so many tails to our industry, and we get hit with so much that people don't necessarily realize. So we have to have the line of communication open, and we do. And look, I completely agree with what the president wants to do, which is to have a strong American industrial base. We're the most American company. We make 80% of our vehicles here. Most of our competitors make 50% or less. And it's cost us over the years. It's about a $2,000 a vehicle penalty versus our domestic competition because we've chosen to be the most American. But I always felt that was the right thing to do. So I completely agree with the goal. The question is, getting there can't go like this. There are just too many things that are tails on those decisions that have to be worked through. So I think we live in a time of great uncertainty, and whether it's tariffs, obviously, things like access to rare earth, which go into so many industrial products. You could sort of whether it's emission regulations and where those are going. So while we are very adaptable, we do have long lead times, and that I think sometimes is completely out of sync with the way Washington, and as I say, I don't mean necessarily the current administration, I mean every administration has to work. So that's always been a challenge for us, is to say, because if you think of it, we've had Republican, Democrat, and each time there have been policy changes that affect us. And so we head down one road, have to pull a U-turn, go down that road, pull a U-turn. It's enormously disruptive, and financially, it's really tough. We have to do it, and we're going to get, I love where we're positioned as Ford. So we have tremendous flexibility. Nonetheless, it does take its toll.
Yeah, Alexandra, you did a lot of work on innovation and EVs. What could you say in terms of what you're seeing right now in terms of marketing for EVs and people's really want for them now in the next 5 years? Because the goalposts keep changing.
The goalposts do keep changing, and so that's why I believe as a company, it comes from my retail experience. If you do right by the customer, I think you have the strongest shot at success. So we serve so many different customers over the history of our company. So it's not our job to tell customers what to buy. It's our job to make incredible products that they want to buy. And we believe that, ICE vehicles, hybrid vehicles, all the different types, EVs, are a great product for different types of people, for different types of things. And so while that does make it more complex, now we have to be very good at many different types of propulsion and different types of vehicles. We think it's the right thing, not only because it lends us this flexibility, but it honestly allows the customer to tell us what they want, and that's their job, and it's our job to make great things for them. So the way we'll navigate this the best, of course, we have to advocate for the success of all of the different types of vehicles. But we'll be most successful if we just keep listening to our customer and trying to push those customers forward into those vehicles.
I think it's really interesting, Bill, that we see that in the beginning when the tariffs were starting in the conversations, that the auto industry as a whole, and GM, Ford, you kind of advocated together and talking to the White House saying, look, this is going to be very difficult for automakers here in the US. How do you, walk the line of advocating as an industry, but yet in serious competitive times, because I can't go through a newspaper or see a Ford ad on television without hearing Ford touting its investment here in the United States?
Well, I think we have to continue to do that. I mean, look, let me put it this way. If our competitors had our footprint, we'd have 15 more auto plants in this country and 4 million more jobs. So I think that tells you our commitment to this country, and nobody else has that. And I don't want that to go unnoticed. Having said that, yes, in most respects, we are aligned with GM and Stellantis, and frankly, Toyota and others, in terms of getting the supply base, the fragility of the supply base fixed, not having the supply base tariffed as parts. Some of these parts cross the border several times, and so we just have to make sure that there's alignment around policy. But you're right. Each company is very different. Each company has a different view of the world, and that can't change, frankly, because we do compete. And we've made decisions. Maybe their decisions are better. I don't know. But for us, it was the right decision to invest in America and to pay that penalty. And I don't regret that for a minute. But that sometimes does put us at odds with others when we try and talk about the industry. Because obviously there are all these industry groups, not all these, there are several industry groups. We're part of them. And we can agree on about 90% of the things. However, there will be some things that we simply won't.
Yeah. And as things continue to change, Alexandra, there was an announcement earlier on in the month about a big loss of operating profit because of the uncertainty of where everything is with tariffs. And I think you have customers looking, saying, gosh, how much more am I going to be paying for a car a year from now? How do you take those considerations into play every day?
Those are huge considerations, because even without this uncertainty, we think affordability is top of mind within our company. We want everybody to be able to afford the vehicle that they want, whether it's an ICE vehicle or an EV vehicle. And so that's a real consideration for us. Like my dad was saying, the political lead times and the production lead times just simply don't match up. And so when we have that level of uncertainty, it's difficult for us to do the math. And so we'll do the best we can. We really hope that things don't have to trickle down to the customer, because protecting the customer is something back to our values that we really believe in. And we'll do the best we can.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about investment. You talked about investment here in Michigan. Can you give us an update on the Marshall plant at all?
Yeah, so we're all in on Marshall, and so it's about 1,700 jobs. I think the big issue for Marshall is, as this big beautiful bill is going through Washington, the production tax credit that is critical to us getting, and we made the investment around, it seems to be up for grabs. And it really, if it doesn't stay, it will imperil what we do in Marshall. And the thing that I keep saying to the politicians is, it doesn't matter if you're Democratic or Republican, whether you believe in things like production tax credits or you don't. We made a certain investment based upon a policy that was in place. It's not fair to change policies after all the expenditure has been made. Going forward, if you want to go down a different road, that's fine, because we can adjust to anything, but we actually don't think it's fair to have all the money expended, offer all those jobs, about to open it, and then say, sorry, we're changing the policy. So I'm spending a lot of time, talking about that with politicians, and and it's a federal issue, but it's also a state issue. And so we've got a gentleman in the front row here, Mike Duggan, who it's no secret, I hope becomes our next governor. And one of the reasons I hope Mike becomes the next governor is he understands business. He understands the issues we face. He understands the complexity of the decisions that we have to make. And he'll be a partner, as he has been in Detroit, for us. I mean, frankly, I wouldn't have done Michigan Central had Mike not been mayor. End of story.
He's going to have to pay for the campaign time that you just
well,
there.
I realize that, but I do think, and I will stop talking politics,
Yeah.
but it really is important, though, is we think about the future of our state and where we want to go, that, we actually make progress, and we don't have infighting all the time, regardless of the party.
Yeah.
And, we just whipsaw ourselves back and forth as a state. Every 2 years, we have different changes and different policies, different conversations. We've got to stop that.
Let's talk a little bit about investing in our workforce here in the state. So, Alexandra, when we look at, keeping the next generation of workers here in Michigan, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I left Michigan and I came back, and it's been an incredible experience. You can see the investment that has been made in the state and in the cities, and it's so vibrant. And honestly, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family. And people want great places to work. We talked about that. And they also want incredible problems to work on. We talk about that a lot as well. We have those things here in Michigan. And so my hope is that the investment continues and the momentum continues, because we are in such an incredible time right now where Detroit and Michigan and our businesses and the whole state has a really great reputation, so much momentum, and I think it's ours just to accelerate. And so I really hope that continues.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I think I've seen a lot of hires at Ford lately who are coming from different industries. And I think in the years past, it's always been like, you've been in auto, we're picking you to be in auto. What is the advantage of putting people in different positions who have come out of different types of occupations?
Some people see outside talent as a risk, and I understand that. I see it as a must. So we obviously have to have great auto experts within our company. But most of our customers are not auto experts. They just want great products. And so regardless of background, we need leaders who really understand our customer and can make great products for them. The reason it's so strengthening to have a mix is the definition of great products is really evolving. And so there's hardware, and that's even changing. We talked about the different propulsions. There's all the software now in the vehicle, and those are entirely new skill sets for our industry that require new ways of thinking, new ways of interacting with the customer, of course, engineering the cars in different ways, coding differently. And so there has to be this mix of automotive experience and then many different outside talents, but they have to come together. And so I think that's the real critical step, and we're seeing that in our company, and it's really strengthened the company having all of these different experts coming in and bringing what they know from different industries and their contacts and their types of relationships with their customers, and it all just makes Ford stronger.
Yeah, enhances it, because you and I have talked before, it's a technology company at this point in time.
Yeah, and look, I think for a long time, we were an insular company in an insular industry in an insular state. And I think, it's because everything was built around the automotive world. And, if you travel to California or, other places where there was this whole, tech revolution taking place, you realize that there was a whole world being developed that wasn't being developed in Michigan. And most in Michigan, including the auto industry, wasn't even aware of it. And so that's why it's so important that we continue to attract talent to this state that can really, and build the future here, not in California, but build it here. It's one of the reasons we did Michigan Central and the whole campus down there. And we have 150 startups there now in the book depository building. And they're working on future-related issues and a lot of those, pretty much all of those companies would have gone to California or Austin, Texas, someplace like that. They wouldn't have come to Detroit, and they wouldn't have come to Michigan. So I think it's really important that we attract talent, not just to Ford, but to our state, if we really want to be a leading state going forward. And we're doing that. And by the way, you all, everyone in this room knows this, the quality of life in the state's unbelievable. We don't have natural disasters. We have all the fresh water in the world. We've got a great workforce. Cost of living's not insane compared to other states. So it's just getting people to realize that. And it's becoming easier to get people to realize that because of the reputation of the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan is growing.
Let's talk about Michigan Central, because it's been almost a year since the grand opening. Can you believe it, timing-wise?
No, and we were just talking before this, you and I, about what a blast that opening party was.
It was the best.
Yeah, that was really fun. And to have all those Detroit or Michigan-based artists come and do it for free. I mean, that was the other thing. I mean, they all just loved being part of it. And it was so much fun just to see everybody in the streets smiling. I mean, everyone was just so happy. And we've had over 300,000 visitors there, and there's really not much to see yet.
But isn't there some announcement soon about hotel?
Yeah, next week we're going to announce the hotel that's going to go in there.
You don't want to say anything now? I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm never very good at keeping secrets, and particularly corporate secrets. So I'll probably blow it also this time. But but it'll be next week, and it'll be great because they'll also bring food and beverage to the place, and it'll really make it a fun place for people not to just go to once, which they're doing now because everyone just wants to see it, but then to keep coming back. And I'm very excited, and the reception of both the community, Corktown and Southwest Detroit, but also the business community. I mean, people are just loving being down there, and we're filling up we're actually trying to not fill it up with Ford people. So we have all the Ford people saying, "Oh, we want to come." We're saying, "No, wait. We want this to be a place where the future can be really imagined, and working with all those startups next door."
Yeah.
So it's coming along great. I couldn't be more excited about how it's been received, and and it's just fun. And I tell you, what was really fun was last fall during the Lions season when the whole place was lit up blue, and they had drones going over with the Lions logo, and it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, Alexandra, in terms of that being a real hallmark of investment and for Ford in the community, but it still needs to keep momentum in terms of with other industry there too, huh?
It really does. I worked downtown in Corktown, and it's so fun. And that was actually even before Michigan Central and more of the campus opened up, and people love working down there. It's just a much more urban feel than you get from some of our other buildings, and people coming from other cities want that. And so it's really fun, and I haven't taken a single person down there who doesn't say, "Oh, I'd move here," or "I'd like to work here," or "Can I come work here?" And so it's really exciting. It's a fun place to be.
You guys don't get to do this very often, do you?
Thankfully, no. This is great.
I mean, because I was just saying, you guys could do a podcast. Everybody could do a podcast, but you guys don't. You usually get to sit down and do this kind of interaction.
We don't.
Right?
No. Behind closed doors normally.
Well, that's great because I have a couple questions for you. I always like to end moderation with just some kind of interesting questions for each one of you. So, Alexandra, the best advice you've received from your dad? This is so good. I love my job.
I don't think I always thought this was the best advice, but he used to tell me all the time growing up, "I expect more out of you." And it used to drive me nuts. And I never thought I would value that advice. But now I really do. And when I think about it often because now I hear it as a reminder to not compare myself to anyone and just to run my own race.
All right, Bill, what is the best advice you've received from Alexandra?
I don't know because I close my ears every time she talks.
Oh my God. Bill, you are done. Alexandra, let's talk.
Yes. The good stuff will happen now.
The good stuff's going to happen now. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, so Alexandra, as you might suspect, is pretty direct. And, she's always the one who will sit me down and tell me what I don't want to hear. And
that's got to be hard.
Well, she's done that since she was born. So frankly, I'm used to it. And so, and it's been great. Actually, not many people in life will do that. And she always has. And she's been the brave one in our family to do that. Usually the others tear up to go talk to Dad. And so it's been great.
Alexandra, what is one thing that you know about your dad that nobody would have guessed?
Please.
This is awesome. This is what you're here for. You know this.
Oh,
wow, this could be a real can of worms for you. I don't know why. This is what pops into my mind.
No, the answer is no.
You are so red right now.
This is the filtered thing that popped into my mind. No. His favorite day of the year is April Fool's Day. And he will spend 364 days planning his pranks. And he will try to trick everyone and anyone. And I have notes and reminders all throughout my phone and my calendar. It's like, ignore Dad today. Don't believe a word he says. Don't even answer his calls today. And his tricks are so good that honestly, about every other year, I fall for it.
What's been the best one?
Oh.
If you can reveal it, if you can't.
You know,
totally.
they always teeter on like 99% could be realistic, but that 1% like sets you off and is fantastical. And I'll never forget, it was a couple of years ago, and now looking back, I'm like, well, that is just silly. He sent a text, and I woke up to it that was like, I really just want to spend more time fly fishing. I've decided to retire by the end of the month. And I was like, oh gosh. And I was like, we probably should have a phone call about this at a minimum. And I call him up, and he tries to keep it going, and I could tell within one sentence. And I was like,
Oh my God.
I'm hanging up.
All right, Bill, what about being a father has impacted your leadership style?
It's toughened me up, I'll tell you that much. No, I think, you know, one of the things I'm very proud of as a father is that I never wanted to miss them growing up. So the minute I got any of their schedules, whether it was, you know, school schedules, sports teams, I put it all on my calendar. And then I tried to move heaven and earth to make every single one of those, you know.
You did.
Well, I made most.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
And so, because, you know, I guess I grew up around a lot of, quote, powerful and wealthy people. And I could see, though, that it was often at the cost of their own family, and their relationship with their children, their relationship with their wife, their relationship with that, and the regret that they all had later because of that. And you know, and I saw that as a younger person growing up, and I thought, you know, that's not what I want, and I'm not going to do that. And so, you know, of course, you never get it perfectly right, you know, obviously, but that was to me the most important thing about being a father. And I also, therefore, at Ford, am always extremely accommodating to anybody who says, you know, I can't make this meeting because I have to attend a, you know, teacher conference, or great, go do it. You'll be a much better employee because of it. Because if you say no to those things, you'll burn people out, and B, the resentment will build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last question. One piece of advice for each other. So, Alexandra, what's your one piece of advice for Bill?
I probably have a laundry list in my notebook somewhere,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure you do.
I'll take a different tack and say, you know, you're always so focused on the future, and that's great, and you need to continue to be. But I do hope sometime, not now, sometime, you write down all of your experiences, because you have the best stories.
And some of them are true.
All right, Bill, your piece of advice for Alexandra.
Well, you know, look, I'll be serious for a moment. This is a very tough industry, and it won't get any easier as we go forward. And you know, you have to continue to be resilient, but also continue to look to the future, because others around you won't. They won't have either the luxury of doing that, or they won't have the inclination to do that, because they just are trying to get through the day. And I understand that, but therefore I think it's going to be incumbent upon you to really be the one to help set the long-term direction of the company, and then not waver, because those around you will waver, and you can't do that. I think that's what's put us in the position we're in today, and I think that will carry us on into the future.
Well, thank you both for sharing just the respect that you have for each other, and the love, and that's guiding a global company as a part of it.
Thank you so much, Christy. That was great.
Ladies
You're
and
the best.
gentlemen,
Thank
Bill
you.
Ford Jr. and Alexandra Ford English.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was really fun.